Computer. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Poetry Saloncast. I'm still Tresha Faye Hefner, and I am going to be your host, but I'm here with Mark Danowsky, who I've known for a while. So, host, interviewer, interviewee, whatever. You're going to hear two poets talking to each other. It's going to be it's going to be a little less formal, but it is going to be me peppering Mark Danowsky with lots of questions. And I am going to start out, in case you are one of those people who don't know who Mark Danowsky is, you've been living under a rock because Mark Danowsky is just the editor in chief of one of the hottest poetry journals out there, I think, One Art, a journal of poetry. He is also the author of the Poetry Craft Essays. He's the Poetry Craft Essays editor for Cleaver magazine, and his poetry collections include Meatless from Plan B Press, Violet Flame from Tiny Wren Lit, Jawn, Jawn from Moonstone Press, and As Falls Trees from Night Ballet Press. And we're going to just talk about all kinds of things today. So, Mark, welcome. Good to have you on the podcast.
Trisha, thank you so much for having me. A pleasure.
Yeah, and it's fun because sometimes on these podcasts I'm talking to someone where I've read their work, but I've never actually spoken to them before, except on the podcast. And then every once in a while I get to interview someone who I have had conversations with before. And with you, I've submitted work to One Art. I've had a few poems published in One Art. We've at the Poetry Salon, we're big fans of One Art. So I've been in touch with you in a variety of different ways for the last couple of years. But I haven't sat down with one of your books before until last night, when I got to sit down. And while I was being consumed alive by mosquitoes out here
Oh
in the
no.
South, I was also really enjoying your latest collection, which is called Take Care. And before we get into the individual poems, yeah, thank you for holding that up. Would you hold that up a little longer? I'm going to ask you before we get into the individual poems, I want to ask about the title of the book. And since you held it up, I'm also going to ask about the cover art. So,
Mhm.
um, tell me where that title comes from. And then also, I mean, I'm seeing this guy with the hoodie. It almost looks like shadow upon shadow, dark gray upon dark gray. Uh, Tell me a little bit about why that cover art and why that title.
So the title is because Drake released an album called Take Care. No, no. I just like making up stuff.
Nice.
So in theory, it's a collection about caregiving,
Hmm.
caretaking. Um, and then I also thought that I was addressing things like trauma and things that had happened in my life. And it turned out I didn't really write that book. So it's just like a weird thing where we think we've done one thing and then like maybe we haven't done that thing. Um, let's go to the cover though. So the cover is by Aaron Weisenfeld, who I highly recommend everyone should check out his artwork. He's brilliant. This aesthetic is like kind of normative for him. Um,
Hold it up a little bit longer. Is that because I'm trying to figure out that's not a photo, is it?
No, no, definitely
Okay.
not. It's a painting.
Mm.
And so often they're like female characters, like often I would say like teenage young adult girls or like women in the woods and things like that,
Mm.
just like doing interesting things that like look kind of witchy. Um, yeah,
Sounds like
there's
I should be checking out their artwork for sure.
oh yeah, he's excellent. He's excellent. And when I emailed him to ask if I could use his artwork, he was like, "Oh, definitely." Like, it's just so sweet about it. And he was also like, "You're not the first poet to ask." And there's so many Bruces out there, so I might get this wrong, but I believe it's Bruce Bond that used two of his pieces as covers. So Aaron kind of like gave me a few options is what happened, and like this
Mm.
was the one that felt right. Um, but yeah, like there's other pieces that are like I would say sort of like I don't know. They feel famous. It's a weird thing in modern times, right? Because we interact with work often so differently. So like I
Yeah.
learned about his work on Instagram, and he does the thing that a lot of visual artists do, where like some of like their fan favorites or ones that they like, I don't know, I'm sure it has to do with like click through rate or something.
Hmm.
Uh, like they pick up on what is liked, and there's like one of this girl standing over a well, which is like very creepy. It has sort of ring vibes. But like that's like and I don't like horror, but I do like that image. And I was like, oh man, that's such a good such a good one. And there was a few others that I was super interested in, but I don't think they were on the table of like options of what I could use. um,
Hmm.
Another factor from the design perspective is when I talked to Eric Morago about the cover and sent him this. So like Aaron was really nice, and he sent me this high res version of it, um,
Hmm.
and that was helpful. But Eric was like, "Oh, this is great because given the layout that we're using, this like fits perfectly." He's like, often when someone brings their own cover, it doesn't actually fit for like a standard size book cover. And
Hmm.
it just happened that like the overlay was really good, and like you could fit the wording, like take care could fit, and like like my name could fit over here without obstructing the image.
Yeah.
Um, so like it just worked. That just worked out really well. Um,
Yeah, I also want to say if you'll hold it up again, yet again,
yeah,
just hold it in place there for a second
gladly.
because I am a compulsive noticer and that means I'm a compulsive teacher too. If you will hold it to your left a little bit farther, uh a little yeah, that's no, now to your right a little bit farther. Just put it right in front of your face. Well, everyone, you need to just Google the book. Yeah, pull it back, pull it back. There we go. That's great. I mean, what I feel is working so well is that juxtaposition between the idea of take care, which is such a colloquial phrase, like we use that phrase all the time without even thinking about it. And then here's this what looks to be the image of someone who they look like a shadow of a person who could be a person at rest, maybe just at the end of a long day, taking a little break, or it could be someone who's like really in stress and very unhappy and depressed, depending on how you're kind of reading that image. They also look sort of like just a piece of driftwood that's bent into the shape of a human being. That's another way I interpret this image, but yeah, so that's a title that's really doing some interesting things. Like this person here seems to be the kind of person who you would need to take care of, but they could also be a person at the end of the day who's really tired because they've been the one doing the caregiving and the care has been taken from them. So I think there's a lot of ways to read that cover, and I think that's what you want a cover and a title to do is kind of work off of each other instead of one being just a picture of what the title is suggesting. Uh, Good job. You guys did a good job creating an evocative title and cover. Good job to you to the artist. Also, you mentioned Eric Morago. Speaking of famous, like in our world, in the poetry world, I know a half dozen friends of mine who have books out from Moontide Press. So, Eric is famous to a number of us, but some people may not know him. So, yeah, Eric Morago is the editor of Moontide Press.
That is
Um,
true.
yeah.
That was I liked the analysis, and the fact that you can talk about it a lot is really good, and it's worth dwelling on as a teachable moment because we know that like covers matter so much for someone wanting to pick up a book and like hold a book and spend time with the book, and it matters for sales, for poets. And
Yes.
it's long been an argument with like people being like, I don't know about like self-publication is because people often aren't able to put together like a very impressive package, like product,
Mhm.
on their own without assistance.
Yeah,
Um,
you always get something that's a little bit more objective. You're going to get a more objective read from someone who's got more perspective on it. And I think I can tell this story, but Chanel Brenner, who's friend of the Poetry Salon, her first book is called Vanilla Milk. And I think there's a poem in there called The Christmas Boy Will Not Disappear. And when she told me that title, I'm like, oh, I love that because I love the poem that's in the book. And I had read the poem and I'm familiar with the work. And I was too close because she showed it to another editor at Silver Birch Press.
mhm.
Forget the editor's name, but that editor was like, oh, people are going to think this is a book about Christmas and you'll only
Yes,
be able to sell it around Christmas time. And I hadn't thought about that. Someone more objective was able to think of it in those terms, in the commercial terms, in the terms of someone who's not familiar with the work. And I was just like, oh, I like that title because this is one of my favorite poems in the book. I was definitely too close to it to be able to give it that kind of objectivity that it needed. So there's a
fair.
plug for Chanel's book, Vanilla Milk. There's a plug for working with an editor who's a little bit more objective than you are. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's a longer one, but I've come around on hybrid publication, still very
Mhm.
wary about self-publication, but I see a lot of merit to hybrid publication, such as those who work with uh, Sean Evaningo Sanders at the Poetry Box. Very,
Awesome.
yeah, like
Um,
great job with people, and like it's like you get like sort of a full package too at a reasonable price.
Yeah, that's a longer conversation, but the
Yeah,
term like
it,
self-publication, I also wonder what it I think that term is changing meaning. Like I know a lot of writers who workshop the hell out of their poems. They've studied a lot with other poets, they've workshopped the hell out of their poems. So if they're self-publishing something, it's still got you still know that it's gone through several edits and drafts of editing and gotten kind of that mark of approval. Or if you like I have a chapbook that I self-published, but I only included in that chapbook poems that had been accepted by journals. So I'm like, does that even count as self-publishing? Like they,
well, I think
you
that's why
know,
it's wise self-publishing because the work's been vetted, so you have that already, which is important.
yeah, absolutely. Well, we've already had several teachable moments and we're only like 15 minutes in here. So that's cool. But I do
Yeah.
want to actually showcase some of your writing, Mark. I think I want to go out on a limb here and let's start with the poem that you chose.
Okay.
Uh, and I always I ask writers to share the work uh that one poem that they choose because they want to talk about um what the backstory might be or what else they can say about it. And then I was selfish. I chose two poems of yours that I want to talk about because one is very short and I worried there wouldn't be enough of a discussion about it. And then the other one is a little longer and I just love both of them. And I said, hey, it's my podcast. I don't have to decide. I'm going to give myself the bonus of getting to talk to Mark about two of his poems. So we're going to start with yours. This is the one you chose. And I'm just going to ask that you go ahead and give it a read. And I'm putting it up here on the screen for those who are visual learners and need to read it as well as hear it. And for those who are like listening to the poetry podcast while chopping onions and doing sit-ups or whatever, like, hey, you can just hear Mark reading it and then you can go read along when you get the book. But Mark, go ahead when you're ready, give it a read.
Okay. So as the quick disclaimer, this is the one long, overly long poem in the short collection, and it's called Candlelight Reflections. Candlelight Reflections. Sometimes it appears the candle burns at both ends. Sometimes it is a deception, the flame in the mirror, a reflection of yourself. Sometimes the candle appears to burn faster in reflection. Sometimes a lit candle is just a candle in memory of a life well lived. Sometimes a candle burns far too close to another fast burning one of its own. Sometimes the candle of a twice, sometimes the light of a twice lit candle burns just right. Sometimes candlelight shines brighter in darkness because it is so dark. Sometimes you don't know all too well until you see it burning bright. Sometimes, once lit, a double image glares in the mirror. Sometimes a candle flames out the only way it knows.
All right, nicely done. It's so funny, Mark, that you were saying this is did you call it an overly long poem?
Well, in the context of this collection and kind of a
Mhm.
lot of the work that I publish in collections, it's quite long.
Because I think it's like just a little over one page. And
Yes, yeah.
I think you know enough of my work to know that I tend to veer towards poems that are on the longer side, and occasionally I have published a poem that's a little shorter. So for me, I'm like overly long. This is about the size that this is a short
Yeah,
poem for
it
me.
is. It for many people, I would just say like I average like 4 to 10 lines in like my kind of like tighter, concise style where I've like really worked to razor it down.
Hmm.
When I write long, sometimes there's a good reason, and sometimes it's just being verbose.
Well, tell me a little bit about this poem. Where did it come from? And why do you think it justifies this incredible length of like just spilling over one page?
Right, so it doesn't, and that's why it's another teachable moment. So a couple fun things I'll pull out since it's in the book is there's some like self-indulgent moments in
Hmm.
this, including I feel like it says something about when it was published that I wanted all too well on a line, which is a direct Taylor Swift reference, as well as the double image
Uh-huh.
is a Sexton reference. And it's like, I don't know, these little Easter eggs are fun. I like doing
Mhm.
it. I think it's good for poetry to have like little things that are joyful to find. Um, there are some related to One Art's website, or I like little Easter eggs. So I think that's a good thing. I don't think it's bad. I think the pacing of the poem is good. I think repetition is effective in poetry. I think it's pretty sonorous. I think honestly, like I'll pat myself in the back and say I think I did a pretty good job. I will say I'm generally not too favorable on starting stanzas all with the same words. So these all begin with sometimes. And that kind of repetition isn't something I would usually encourage. I'd usually say like do it once or twice, and then you can kind of stop and like the reader gets the gist of it. So the big reveal is that the long version in the final version of this was a mistake. And
Mm.
that shouldn't have happened. But I really can only blame myself. So Dana Knott did some terrific editing on several poems that are credited in the back of this, which I should really name drop because it's quite a few um,
Hmm.
if I can find it. But of course, I don't know what's happening in my own book. Oh, here we go. So oh wow, this is organized in a way where it's a little hard. But so gathering, Eden, magnetism, lesson. So that's ghosts. That's like five matches. All right, so that's like five, I think, that I credited. Oh, so wonderful! I even did properly credit that Candlelight Reflections appeared in Violet Flame, from
Mhm.
Tiny Ren Lit, which Dana and I helped edit and make more concise. And for those who don't know, Tiny Ren Lit is specializes in short poems, and Dana's really good at helping edit down and just like razor away extraneous words and lines from already short poems. So she
Mhm.
improved like most of those, if not all of those poems for Violet Flame, which is like a littler chapbook. Like even this is like first like almost, I guess we could say it's like really sort of a full length. But like all the other books are very, very short. And so later, like considerably later, um, I realized that I had included the wrong, and I don't, I don't know even know what to say, but let me read this one, and this is what appears in Violet Flame.
This is going to be the shorter version.
This is the shorter version. This is the shorter
Okay.
Candlelight Reflections. Sometimes a candle appears to burn faster in reflection. Sometimes a lit candle is just a candle in memory of a life well lived. Sometimes a candle flames out the only way it knows.
Oh,
And
it
so
is a
that's
shorter. It is
it
a
is. It's
shorter poem.
Yeah, so it's 9 lines at that point. And that is more of a of in my lane in certain respects of like where I like it to be, and I think like where maybe like as a poet I operate better.
Hmm.
Um, so she really, razored away a lot to help
Hmm.
get it there, and I was like, oh yeah, that's like much more of a gut punch. Um, and yeah, it's a shame that that's not the one included in the final version. So, but I think it makes for a good teachable moment, which is, it's really on the poet to kind of, it's like the do your own research. It's like you got to do your due diligence when you're finalizing a collection because, for those who don't know, right? Like when you send a publisher the collection and they accept it, they usually will say like, I'll accept a certain amount of changes before this date, right? Because they're
Hmm.
thinking about their publication calendar. And they might say like, like just don't change more than like 20% or something because like they don't want a new book. They accepted a
Yes,
specific
yeah.
book. Yeah.
Well, I
And
think this is like
yeah, go
first of all, I have to like pause you because we
ahead.
started out with you reading this poem and then immediately like slashing and burning your own work, which I'll accept for you because it's your poem and you can do that. But I mean, if you were doing that with anyone else's work, I think we'd need to say, hey, like you got to give this poem like its compliments first and then some feedback for the author and then the compliments, right? But I think this is kind of like what happens when you are an editor. And maybe one of the dangers of becoming an editor, one of the dangers of taking workshops, you are almost compulsively looking at work, asking, how can this be shorter? How can this be tighter? How can we change
Correct.
this? And you gotta like
It's
do something, go through some ritual or whatever
it's a
to
huge
remind yourself
occupational,
to like,
no question.
yeah, to like turn off the editor brain. Um, because I wanted to say, like, I read the longer version and didn't know what your backstory with the poem was. And I'm like, I'm taking it as it is and
Yeah.
thinking more about like what is this poem trying to communicate to me instead of like how can it communicate it faster and in a shorter amount of space. So we've talked a lot about the craft. I kind of want to ask you a little bit about the backstory of the poem itself. Like where did this poem come from and like what was motivating this poem as you were saying it. Also, Mark, I want to
Yeah.
there is a beeping sound coming from the other room. I'm hoping no one's picking up on it here, but
No,
I do
no.
want to address it. So, could I actually ask you to read the longer version again? And by the time you're done, I'll have finished turning off whatever it is that's beeping in the other room.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So, oh, interesting. So I actually we changed it. I didn't realize this either. From candlelight reflections to candle reflections. So yet another change. So in the book, it's candle reflections. Sometimes it appears the candle burns at both ends. Sometimes it is a deception, the flame in the mirror, a reflection of yourself. Sometimes the candle appears to burn faster in reflection. Sometimes a lit candle is just a candle in memory of a life well lived. Sometimes a candle burns far too close to another fast burning one of its own. Sometimes the light of a twice lit candle burns just right. Sometimes candle light shines brighter in darkness because it is so dark. Sometimes you don't know all too well until you see it burning bright. Sometimes once lit, a double image glares in the mirror. Sometimes a candle flames out the only way it knows. So I'll add some more points. So this time
Hmm.
around, we're noting the burning bright. It's like I'm really just piling in the like literary allusions here. Um, so I feel like there is a lot more going on in the poem with like the longer version. Um, there's a lot of stuff that like people could pick up on, but like again, like so poetry dwells in mystery, right? Or dwells in
Hmm.
possibility, both those things. But like it, you can do fun Easter eggs, but what you do not want to do is obfuscation for the sake of obfuscation. So like, I'm not like a art for art, like art for the sake of art person. I don't think that's good. I don't like MFA poetry that like just like sound and fury signifying nothing. It doesn't. I've just read so much of that shit that like it's just like terrible. Um, but like so some stuff is hard because it's asking too much of the reader and there's no necessary access point. So like here's an example. Sometimes a candle burns far too close to another fast burning one of its own. So I know what I mean by that. I hopefully like it meets the reader a percentage of the way where they can think of something interesting for them. Um, I'll share that like where I got it from directly is for anyone who has used a menorah for Hanukkah or like seen how they work, the placement of the shamash candle makes a big difference and often just like melts the other candles that are in proximity. And it's like, it's a, you know, a bit of a metaphor, right? And like we're looking at the candle thing and, you know, like the concept of like burning a candle at both ends. And so like there's a lot of these sort of like how do you think about what a candle does in it, not like some of it's literal and some of it's like obviously not literal.
Hmm.
To be reductive. Some of it is and some of it isn't. But yeah,
Well,
the aboutness of the poem, to use a fun MFA term, you know, like is how it opens, which is thinking about that sometimes it is about, you know, people like burning the candle at both ends, and like I have a specific person in mind that I'm like sort of writing about, and that's usually it's usually a good thing, where like your target reader is like
Hmm.
one person, or like maybe like your reading group, or like very specific, not like a general you, or like everyone should understand this, like the specific makes it universal. So, you know,
Yeah, I want to say that's part of what I love about getting to have these conversations because, maybe there is something, there's the private meaning of a poem and there's the personal meaning of a poem versus, let's say, the public accessibility, that phrase that we like to use now. It's accessible. And some people find that to be pejorative. Like that's almost an insult to some
mhm.
people, whereas other people are like, well, I want someone to have to work really hard to understand this poem. And hey, you know what I'm gonna say? There's all different kinds of flavors of ice cream. Fine. If you need to have a really accessible poem for you to be able to understand it, and that's the kind of poetry you like to read, great. Go get those. If you want to be reading something that requires you to have an MFA to understand it, have at it. Go find those too. I don't think we have to be in competition or fighting it out. It's like, make some for some people and make others for other people. Um, but I love having these conversations because there is the poem as it lays on the page without any autobiographical information, and then I got to ask you, like, well, what's your private meaning about it, or what did you intend for it? And that's kind of the fun of having friends who are poets and having poets who you got to talk to. It's like I can find out what it means to you, the poet, um and
You
then
can,
everyone else can read it the way they
but you
want to
don't want
read it.
to, we don't want to kill the magic either. So it's a tough balance there, because a lot of the fun, right, is the imagination, right, that like the reader gets to bring to it. And so like you want to meet the reader give or take halfway, but if it turns out that like the true intention is like really banal or something, or if the poet says like, I don't even really know what I meant by that, sometimes that's like extremely disappointing to hear, where they're just like, yeah, I don't know, I just I thought it sounded good, and you're just like, what, like I
Yep.
overthought this so much, and like
Hmm.
your answer is like it just sounded cool.
Like, what's wrong with that? Like, you thought about it for a long time. Well, great. You probably had maybe some revelation about what your values are, what your
Sure.
philosophy is, how you feel about this. I'll just tell you with reading this poem, Mark, right now I'm in the sandwich generation, which means that I've
Mm-hmm.
got not my own child, but my nephew, and I don't have to do a lot of the caretaking for him, but I do take him into consideration. And then I've got my aging parents, and I take into consideration a lot of, what their needs are. So like for me, caretaking, burning the candle at both ends, I'm like, boy, I can definitely read a lot of my own story and my own life story into that metaphor of a
Right.
candle being burned to both ends. And I think that is a little bit of the magic of a metaphor, is like I will be able to read my story onto that and what that means to me onto that. I can reflect on that. I think actually this poem, I think indirectly affected some of my own writing this morning. I remember this morning writing a line about how like there's some points in life where you're working all the time and don't have time to write, and then there are other points in your life where you can sit down and reflect on all that work you just did, which I realized like I think that was influenced by reading your poem last night, and that
Good.
idea of like
I mean,
reflecting. Yeah. One day the candle that's burning at both ends will have a chance to sit down and reflect on what
I
it was just doing.
so on the sort of the broad strokes of like caretaking, right, and caregiving, I I think part of the reason the title makes sense is like it speaks for people who know me to like my personality, and
Hmm.
like the people I involve myself with and have involved myself with through my life. and like the role that I've taken in life in many respects. And then I also do think that it does resonate, right, with a lot of people, precisely because, aging boomer population,
Yeah.
massive like elder millennial and Gen Xer population who are in like the rush hour of life slash like the sandwich generation situation. And, it's really complicated. I don't have children. I don't even know how I can't even like finish that thought. It's just like, it's just amazing to me. Um, but I witness a lot of people spending great amounts of their time doing caregiving, and like I don't know how they have the bandwidth to do it and how it's possible. And I know like you yourself are kind of torn, energy
Hmm.
wise, dealing with
Yeah.
this, and it's a lot of weight.
Yeah. Because we reference Moontide Press,
Mm.
G. Murray Thomas has a book called Living the Sundown, which is um a series. It's I want to say it's a high boon of book. It's part of its prose, but it's got poems in it, and it's about him taking care of both of his ailing and aging parents. And it, it makes sense why so many of the poems in there are very haiku like, because you never really have time to write anything longer than that, sometimes.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, right. And there's a history of this, right? So like Frank O'Hara's lunch poems is like concepts
Mhm.
like lunch breaks. Lucille Clifton famously wrote these short poems because like she was always child rearing and dealing with children. And so like she would write them in these like little breaks between having to do other things for other people because like that was what was expected of her as a person.
Yeah. I feel conversely, honestly, though, that writing a shorter poem for me actually takes a lot longer because I can sit down and
Yeah.
just get all the ideas out, and then trying to figure out which ones were important and which ones were not. That's the part that for me it takes a lot of time. But everyone's different that way.
Well, that's true. I mean, there's like these famous quotes, right? It's like, this would have been shorter had I had more time, right? And
Yes.
that's like very true. I would say we've all seen like from emails, right? When someone sends you like a block of text, often, it's perceived as like a little bit rude, right? Like, and the thinking is that like, could someone have taken a little bit longer to just like kind of get to the bullet points for me here?
That's so weird because I think about that all the time, writing about Substack and then editing poetry. I'm thinking, even in an informal letter to like family and friends, I'm like, this is going to take too long to read. So which segments of this can I highlight? And how can I put this in bullet points? And I'm just thinking, like, I'm a reader. I read novels. I read poetry and I read novels. And how am how am I this person who now only reads in bullet points? Like, but that's what I expect now, especially for my informative texts. Don't you dare write me a paragraph. Don't you dare explain to me what your thinking is. Just give me the bullet points and my to-do list so I can go out and do it. And I'm not really sure I like that that's how I have been sort of conditioned to think anymore. So I'm like, I don't know. I gotta think about that. But on to your poems. I I like this discussion because we've been able to talk about the substance of it and the craft aspect of it, burning the candle at all the different ends, reflecting the candle at all the different places. And I want to ask you now to read the other two. Let's break them up into two though. Let's
Sure.
go with the one that's a bird in a box. Let's do that one first.
Okay. So, Bird in a Box is one of them that appeared first in Gargoyle magazine, which Richard Peabody did for like 50 years, which is amazing. And I feel it's important to give the shout out because he was definitely, an inspiration in the community. So
Yeah.
helpful to me in formation of one art of my own direction. So yes, this is a bird in a box. Before I worked there, I saw a bird in the Walmart rafters while browsing seed for my feeders. I went to the hardware aisle, retrieved a 28-cent box cutter, and slit across. Subtle, I motioned to the bird. See how I try?
Mark, that's like a poem just designed for me. First of all, like I got a thing for birds. I got a thing for birds showing up in unexpected places. And also, like, I hope I never get in trouble for admitting this, but this is totally the kind of thing I would do too. And just be all like, come birds, here's some feed for you. Um, is this based on a real story?
Yeah, I definitely did that. Yeah. And that's the thing too, is like it's a personality tell, which I think is kind of fun.
Can you say, is this a thing you do on a regular basis, going in and vandalizing merchandise on behalf of the natural world?
Yeah, just almost daily, at least bi-weekly. No. um, yeah, no, it's just I guess it's sort of s- spontaneous, kind of spur of the moment thing. It felt
Mm.
right at the moment. Um,
Mm.
but it also, I think it says something about my sort of lack of corporate allegiance or something as like a fringe societal member who's just like, just like,
It's very Robin Hood. It's very like
yeah.
rob from the rich and give to the poor. I mean,
Hmm.
you could read a lot of poetry commentary or environmentalist commentary into that, like, what an unnatural world we live in, that the seeds and the food for the birds, which should be plentiful, are now commodified,
Hmm.
and being withheld from the ones they're meant to serve. And it's like, this is something that, it's like bottled water. Like, we
Yeah.
should be able to get that for free. And there's all these billion-dollar industries about commodifying it, and like, what are we doing to the environment? And here's one
Yeah.
thing
Shipping
we can
water from
do.
Fiji, right? Like, it's important.
Yeah, it's very, I mean, like, it's so ubiquitous we don't even think about it anymore. And then every once in a while you can just stop and think, what am I doing? What am I doing? And yet, hey, kids at home, don't go out into a random stream and drink the water straight from it. You're probably going to get like some horrible disease because I don't know. That's what we've done to our environment, that we can't just drink water from a creek. You're probably safe drinking water from the rain. I think that's pretty well I don't know. Don't drink water
On
from the
on the subject though, I had a
rain.
great philosophy professor in undergrad, and he pointed out that the brand Evian is naive backwards, which is fun. But the even weirder thing about it was he said this, but he also bought it. Like he would buy large bottles of it
Mhm.
to serve. So it
There
was
you
interesting.
go.
Yeah. So he thought it was funny, but then was also like, but I like the product.
Evian is also, isn't it a place in Switzerland?
I I'm the worst person to ask for a geographic.
No, I'm just wondering because I think it came up oddly enough in another poem recently that somebody I know was writing. Okay, that's all right, everyone. Your homework is to go find out why Evian is called naive backwards, if that is coincidence, or is there something that they're trying to tell us, or like some secret hidden code they're trying to get us to. Um, I want to have one day, Mark, like some other podcast called like Poets Talk About Anything But Poetry, because I feel like often that is what happens in these
This is what I
conversations.
always want to do on podcasts. Honestly, is I don't get me on the whole what Mark has wanted to do on podcasts since podcasts were a thing, but it's just like I've wanted to do so many different variations and
Mhm.
iterations of things. But yes, absolutely, getting people on and just like what is like the day to day of your life, like as a poet, as an artist. I think like that's fascinating, like the person behind the work, and
Mhm.
just and not and it's different, not to like sort of demystify or not to take like the magic again away, because I will say on that note that there are people that like I've unfollowed on Facebook,
Mm.
whose work I really really like, so I'm not going to name drop anyone, but like but because see like these are poets I really respect, but seeing the kind of like minutia of their daily life was like ruining it for me, because
Oh,
like I like
really?
had them on like a pedestal that I liked, and like I
Yeah.
needed that move, and like seeing that like oh like they just like that's their dinner, okay, like this is what they post about, it's just like I don't want that, like that's not what I want from that person. But
Yeah.
I think
Mhm.
yeah, so that's one thing, but like I think it's very different to get that person in the context of like a more intimate conversation and then talk through just like their general interests and like how they spend their time.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting question that I'm always aware of when I follow poets and stuff is like some of them, their social media, you wouldn't even know they write poetry because it's all posts about politics or family or whatever. And like their social media is not very
Mm-hmm.
poetry centered. And then of course I know other poets, and I think I include myself here, where it's only that. If you look at my feed, a lot of the times it's just like I had this poem published. Here's a poem my friend had published. Hey, everybody, check out this poetry event we're going to do. And like, not a whole lot of personal content. And I feel like that's alienating to people as well, because they're all like, well, this is just promotion. You're just using your social media for promotion. And like, we want to be friends with you. So, like, finding that balance, I feel like can be a little challenging. Um,
That's true.
yeah.
I think a lot of people, depending on how they see you, they want that more professional lens. I will say that I also don't think it's really like the person's fault, right? For the level we're manipulated by the machine, right? Like the algorithm
Yes.
and the way that these things are designed, there's only so much personal responsibility when they're throwing like rage bait in front of you.
Oh my God. No, here's one thing that I have become like really no doubt definitely figured this out is like I do not engage with politics online. Every once in a while I will break that rule or like have a moment of weakness where I'm like, "Oh, but I have to respond to this thing this person said."
And then you regret it.
Always regret it.
Yeah.
Always. I always regret it. So I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
I will engage because I think that's our civic duty, and I'll show up for things and I'll join
Yeah.
letter writing campaigns, but I don't think
Tresha, yeah,
anyone.
we forgot we should be talking Israel Palestine. That's what we should
Oh,
be
good
doing.
Lord. No, no, but I will shout out another poet, Donna Sproutmetz, because she on the Poetry Salon cast, like she was talking about one of her recent books is really focused on that. And I didn't even
Hmm.
ask her what her position or viewpoint was. She was like, the book is focused on how impossible it is to even talk about that subject. And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
I feel that. I'm just like, boy, that's something you don't want to talk about with a 10-foot pole. I have family members who are like, I've never fought with you about anything. And even with them, I'm like, oh, okay, so we'll fight about this. We won't fight about anything else, but on this subject, we could definitely start fighting. That's interesting.
Right.
So
Hmm. Hmm.
I love giving a shout out to Donna Sprout Metz as well because her work is fantastic. And so everyone go check it out.
Her work is fantastic.
I will forget it's like to phrase a prayer for peace. I think that's the title of the book. But if you Google Donna Sprout Metz poet,
And
Oh,
she got a cool award that I like that exists, which was like I'm forgetting this exact award, but it was like specifically honoring like more like debut older writers.
oh, cool. I always feel I have mixed feelings when I see those because on one hand, I'm always like, oh, well, I want to submit to that. Oh, I can't because, I haven't reached that age level
Well,
yet.
let's talk about that for a minute. Yeah, so like One Art's about to do a crossover reading.
Uh-huh.
Excuse me, this coming Sunday with Quartet, which is a lit mag for people that describe themselves as women over
Mm,
50. And so I remember when I worked for the Schuylkill Valley Journal, and there was a meeting which had some fallout because during the meeting, someone wanted to do an online issue, I believe, that was
mm,
exclusively Black writers.
mm,
And someone on the staff said, that's racist.
mm,
And
mm.
by a certain definition, you could say, like, well, it's like racialized, right? Or something like,
Yes,
I don't know that we
yeah,
want to call it racist, but it is right. So there's something there when like you're saying like this is just going to be for this group and not everyone else. It's tricky. It's
yeah,
tricky. It's yeah, it's a choice. And there has to be, I guess there ought to be a good why.
right.
Why are we doing this thing?
No, I had a similar issue when we started Odd Pocket. I was thinking, like no offense at all to anyone who gets an MFA. Many of my friends have MFAs.
Yeah.
But like it does give you an edge. So I was thinking of creating this journal that's exclusively for people who don't have MFAs, just to give them um an edge as well. And, some people were just like, hey, no, don't exclude anyone for any reason. And, I just realized like I have so many friends who do have MFAs and I didn't want to exclude them, even though I did want to give the edge to some who don't. So I was like, huh. But you do really have to think about what you're doing, why you're doing it. Is it going to be a net positive? Is it going to be a net negative? I have no
Mhm.
problem with there being journals and publications for people who are over a certain age. It's just, like for example, the poetry prizes for people who are under a certain age. I can
Mhm.
go, well, I missed that boat. Bye. And not think about it too much. The ones for people who are over a certain age make me go, I can't submit to them now. I have this book. It's ready. It hasn't gotten accepted. I wonder if I'm going to get to be 50 and then I'm finally going to be able to submit it to this place. It's like it's lingering over there. Like
Yeah.
one day I might submit to this place once I'm that age, but boy, I hope I don't have to wait that long. So it's just a little bit of a different situation. I don't know. It's the opportunity of Damocles hanging over my head.
So, well, two things. So, I used to sort of turn my nose up a little at the young person ageism thing because, right, so I always remind people that like literary community is a microcosm of the greater society, right? And like
Yeah.
poetry community even smaller than that. So so like our society prizes youth, right? And so we're always like, oh, the young people are doing the things that matter. Like our society caters to people 18 to 34, like demographics in terms of like how capitalism works, give or
Hmm.
take for the most part. But like, the Ruth Lilly, Dorothy L. Sargent award that's like 21 to 31,
Hmm.
and that's like it's the prize goes up every year and it's a decent chunk. And I started to realize like why that was impressive is if you do something and you're in your 20s and it's like genuinely like kind of mind blowing, that is surprising. Like
Yeah.
that's genuinely surprising because like I wasn't doing anything mind blowing in my 20s. And it's just the reality. And just most people aren't there. And there's just a maturity and like time. And like a lot of life is about duration and seeing repetition. And like you kind of have to have seen some shit. So, like, right. But at the same time, I want to say, well, multiple people have said it, but like, I think it was like Virginia Woolf or like no, it's Flannery O'Connor. I think it was like any girl that's lived to the age of 12 has like enough material for a lifetime,
Yep.
and that's like definitely true. But like you need to live a little longer to write about this stuff is the thing. They're like, the language or like the perspective, like the lens on it until later,
Yeah.
usually. So like a little impressed. So like kind of get the like best 30 under 30 thing a little bit. And then the other thing is as like we see keep sort of like spinning around is like there are so many turtles. So like Duotrope lists like 7,000 chill subs. I think narrows it there because they did a little better job of like what's active and legit. They have like 4,300, I think, markets. And so all that to say, like there is enough niche for everyone.
Yes.
And so like I know like one art doesn't have to be for everyone because there are lots of journals doing something different that will publish, say, like more experimental, whatever
Hmm.
that means, poetry, or like poetry magazine, right? Often people are like, poetry makes me crazy. And then it's like, well, the mission of poetry magazine from the beginning is to publish avant-garde poetry. And so like
Mm.
that's like what do you expect? Like, like there's a reason you want to throw it against the wall sometimes is because it's like avant-garde and like not everybody likes avant-garde art. And
Yes.
like it's like too soon often, right, to be appreciated. And I don't know. So it kind of makes sense, I guess, is all I'm suggesting.
Well, something I want to say that I really appreciate about one art, I feel like its aesthetic is comprehensible enough that I know what I'm going to want to send to one art. I know when I see poems in workshop, which ones I would say, hey, give one art a try. And they need to be things that
Excellent.
are accessible. Like if somebody has yeah, something that's a little more avant-garde and the line breaks are crazy and whatever. Like I might love that poem, but I'm not going to recommend they send it to one art, you know?
Hmm.
And I like that I know what I'm going to not that it's predictable, but like I know what I'm gonna find in one art. I also know that I can frequently go there if I'm like looking for a poem that is short enough and accessible enough and it'll have enough broad appeal that this is where I'm going to find the poem that I want to showcase on the poetry salon so that people like there's so many times where I'm going to interview someone on the poetry salon cast or I'm going to you know uh create a promotional flyer for one of the poets and I'm like, which of their poems should I showcase? And like half the time I pick one that's been published by One Art because I'm like, it's short enough. And the people who are like, oh, I'm just getting into poetry, or I'm not sure if I like poetry, they could see this and recognize it. And then sometimes I'll look for other poems by that same poet, and it's like, here's this 10-page long poem they did
Yeah.
that's in the style of John Berryman, and I'm just like, oh, I can't. That's a great poem. It won the greatest poem of the year award, but like, I can't put that on a flyer. That's not going to bring anyone in. That's going to scare people away, So
Right.
it's like, oh, I like that.
Yeah, no. And thank you. And I like hearing it, unsurprisingly. But I do think I like to think you can kind of like vibe out a one art poem relatively easily. Like if when people say like you read the journal, like I don't think you have to read that many poems in the journal to actually get a sense of it. Like if someone looked at like randomly at like the last 10 posts, I think
Mm,
like they like just clicking through some of them would be like, oh,
yeah.
okay, I get it. Like approachable, accessible, like the language isn't like super crazy. There's a fair amount of like access points for the reader. The reader can get hooked in pretty easy. You don't need a degree to understand it. Like, you know, my parents, like, insert X person, could like you could hand this to them and they'd be like, I get it, at least like whatever, they get something out of it. Like the
Yeah.
average person should be able to glean some value from it without any special knowledge. So like,
Yes.
yeah, so it's not like high flown stuff.
Yeah, well, and also like
Typically.
I don't know, I'm gonna push back on you. Why can't it
Hmm.
be high flown? Like I think just because the language is simple doesn't mean that the concepts are any less highfalutin or anything like that. But
Well, that's like Shakespeare, right? So like,
yeah.
famously Shakespeare like wrote for all audiences. We'll go with maybe it was one guy. But like right, English major. Okay. So like uh so there was stuff in there for people from like all walks of life. So like
Mhm.
there are, pretty high flown concepts, and then there's like dick jokes, because like the point is that there was something for everyone. So you did not have to be like a highly educated person to attend a play and feel like you
Yes.
were having a good time. And like I think one art is like similar. And I do like to throw curveballs at readership, like to kind of get people out of their box a little bit. Like
Mhm.
if they think like, if like primarily, because some people tell me like they read it every day, which makes me very happy. But I want to broaden their horizons a little too. I feel like that's part of my job as like a curator facilitator, is to sort of like display some taste and broaden horizons occasionally. And so like some of the work that gets added in is exposure.
Mhm.
And it's for readership, that because I want readership exposed to it. Um, but I will say, like, just as far as what's going on with like what's coming out more recently, is like the amount of reading that I do, and over time, like the repetition and just like the same kind of stuff over and over, is like anyone who reads as much as I do and select other poetry editors that get like disturbing levels of submissions a day, is like it's you just want to get excited about something and you want
Yeah.
something a little different and original and unique. Um, and this will be clear, and I'm about to share soon our best of the net selections, and they really highlight uh, work that does something that's like a little unexpected.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, and this is a good question too. I think the um I wanted to ask, like, your reading, is that changing the way that you write as well? And also,
Mm-hmm.
I guess, does it inspire you more, or are you like, after I've read for one art and read all these poems, I'm like super excited about working on my own work, or is it like I've read so much and now I want to burn all the libraries and never look at a poem
Yeah,
again?
yeah, the latter. Yeah, unfortunately, I like, again, occupational hazard. It is hard to want to do the thing after high levels of I mean, because it's like predator human. Like this is not normal. Nobody reads hundreds of poems a day.
Hmm.
Like they just don't. Like it's just not normal. And so over time you become a person who's not normal, right? And like, and also it's made it so like when I go to put down lines now, for the most part, like it's really like fraught. Like I feel like there's like much more intensity to the act because
Mm.
like I'm just so exposed to so much stuff that it's really challenging to wear the writer's hat and to feel good about it. And I'm, I generally say, and it's not a humble brag, that like I read better stuff in one art than I write, like the stuff that I publish. And so, like, I'm genuinely happier for people to like read what's published in one art over like my personal writing most of the time. Like, I think I do some pretty cool stuff for the audiences that like what I write. It is short, so a bonus to short is that if you didn't like it, right,
Hmm.
you're not wasting someone's time, which is key, something to keep in mind for people.
I want to say I totally vibe with you on that because but also like to give you me all editors credit like when you're the editor and you're gathering poems from the rest of the collective poetry writing world, like,
Yeah.
yeah, of course you're going to have stuff that you like better than your own stuff. I mean,
Oh,
first
yeah.
of all, we're never as critical of other people's writing as we are of our own stuff, but also like you're drawing from hundreds, thousands of people and they're all sending their work. And I don't think it's always so much like, you're a good poet or you're a bad poet so much as like, you're a poet and you have some of your work that's lesser and some of your work that's better. I mean, I think we all have that, right? So it's like,
Absolutely.
yeah, you're picking the what you consider to be the cream of the crop of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of submissions versus like your own writing. Maybe you only have like a few favorite of your own poems that you're super excited about. So yeah,
That's
it's not a
true.
fair comparison.
Yeah. So this just reminds me of Robert Frost has a really great, super short essay that's just like so compressed with all of this amazing knowledge the shape a poem makes.
Mm,
And it's so good. It's such a good thing to teach in workshop. And he like boldly expresses like a poem should be so good that like you should be able to read it 50 times and not get bored of it. And you're sort of like, you take a step back and you're like, wait a minute, Robert, like there's basically nothing you can read 50 times and still like there's no way he was reading his own poem 50 times and he's like mending walls still so good. It's like I don't know, man, you'd be bored.
okay, I've put a lot of thought into this, and this is part of why I think I'm a poet and a writer and not a stand-up comedian.
Okay.
I love stand-up comedy, and I
Yeah,
think
me
I
too.
have more the personality of a stand-up comedian, but I realized like I don't want to tell the same joke 800 times. That's not necessarily exciting to me. It stops being funny after a while because the whole,
Yeah,
funny is surprise. If you've told it 100 times, it stops being interesting. But I feel like drama is different. Like, I don't know, I can go into, Hamlet or well, I've never played Hamlet, but I'm trying to think of, I don't know, a dramatic role like Ophelia or something. And I don't know, drama just feels like it's always relevant no matter how many times because it's
it's a
not
lot.
based on surprise as much.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, so theater is like a living, breathing thing, right? It's shit.
Yeah.
Um, it's not like a stagnant thing. I've like flirted with the idea of like poetry that can do that, that like is evolving, but like
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't, that's like kind of a challenging thing for a written form. Like you can have a lot of iterations of the thing, but like we've seen examples in history of that, come to think of it. And it's actually like basically a mental illness. Like Walt Whitman, like repeatedly tweaking Leaves of Grass for his whole life is like crazy. Like that's not a normal thing for a person to do.
No. It's not, but you got to remember, they didn't have the internet, they didn't have television.
This is
So, like, maybe it's just that there was like nothing better to do at the time. Although, I mean, I know he also wasn't he like a journalist during the Civil War? Maybe he did have more that he needed to do. I don't know. I don't know if that's fair. I mean, you also think about, well, what's the alternative? Like Wisława Szymborska, I think after she won the Nobel, there was 10 years where she didn't write poetry. And I don't know if she really didn't write it
Mm.
or she wrote it and she just didn't publish it, because those are two different things. But the anecdote is that she didn't write it for 10 years and then she took it up again. She said, I prefer the absurdity of writing poetry over the absurdity of not writing poetry.
That's
And to
funny.
me, I'm just like, oh, that is still the best justification for why we do this. Well,
Szymborska is
the
so good.
absurdity of doing it or not doing it, and it's more fun to do it than not do it, you know?
Totally, totally. I mean, it is more fun to do it than not do it. And, like Billy Collins jokes about, and right, he's written a million books, um, that like, we're not really done writing poetry until we've like uh compared everything to everything else in the world. And
Yeah.
like we're always making like there's always new technologies, new things. So like we're always getting fresh metaphors and similes to use.
Oh
So
yeah,
like, we'll never run
absolutely.
out.
No, that one I think is a really fun one. I don't think I've given this exercise, but I will, and I'll make it a bonus for everyone. But I've thought about, like, okay, a cliche, the moon, the ocean, just billions of poems about this. How could you
Mhm.
possibly freshen it up? Well, pick something. And this is a great exercise. Like, you can look up like what are new words and terms that were only added to the dictionary or the Urban Dictionary last year.
Right.
Um, and one that haven't turned into a full poem, but I really love this, is the term porch pirate, was just added
Yeah,
to
yeah.
the
That's
lexicon, I
pretty
think, a couple
sure.
years ago. And I'm like, the moon is a porch pirate. No one's ever said that phrase before, and I think it's poetic and wonderful. And it's in my scrapbook of like, I'll find something else interesting to say about this, or I'll find a way to work that into a poem at some point. But yeah, we'll never finish comparing everything
No.
to everything else in poetry. It's just that's why we keep writing poetry. It's not that we
Hmm.
um you never reach the bottom of the well where you say I've now officially said everything there is to say. There's always more to say, you
And
know?
it's a moment of hope for people worried about like AI sort of being able to outdo us, which in certain ways it can and will.
Yeah.
um, but in other ways, it's less likely. And part of that is that it's a predictive machine, right? Like our brain, also a predictive machine. But it's the ones that we are seeing the most of are large language models. What we have is a small language model. And like the old saying, to err is human, is what makes us really interesting. Is that
Mm-hmm.
when we cherry pick from things and smash things together, it's because like we have a whole bunch of crazy stuff in it. Like we don't understand the human brain at all, basically at this point. Uh, But also, like when we go to like pull things together, it's totally different than like a language model,
Mm-hmm.
which can scrape just vast amounts of data and then pull from really crazy directions. That's just not how our brain works. So like it's a
Yeah.
totally different thing. So like I hopefully I guess it's a way of hopefully saying like we shouldn't feel threatened in that we can keep doing our own human thing because the human method is just different
Yeah.
because like we're not machines and we can't be complete machine like we just yeah like try to take in too much information, right? And I experience this a lot in recent times is like I'll go down rabbit holes and like I'll literally feel like brain fry like my
Yep.
like literally like overheating, like my head is like overheating and like it is not good, but it's because like we only have so much capacity. So we have to, it's a limitation, but that's a useful constraint. Like we
Yeah.
operate with constraints and poetry is constraints. So this is good. It's hard
Yeah.
not to eventually.
Part of my reason for not worrying about AI in terms of poetry, I'm worried about AI for other reasons, but I'm not worried about it in terms of poetry because I feel like poetry is a thing for me. I do it because I enjoy the feeling. And it's like
Right.
compare it to going to the gym, eating a meal, doing something else physical that you might enjoy doing. It's like, yeah, a machine can come up with the product, but I'm not here for the product. I am here for the process. Like,
Hmm.
to use the
Spoken like
analogy
a
of
true
like,
writer. Yeah.
yeah, of course. We like to use the analogy, and I wish I could give this to kids, teenagers and people who work with teenagers. This is, I think, a good
Yeah.
metaphor. It's like, yeah, think about it as fitness. I think we still care about fitness and our physical appearance. It's like, yes, a forklift can lift a heavy weight. It can lift a weight better, faster, with less injury to its back than you can.
Yeah.
You still lift the weight because it's going to build your muscle. You turn all that over to the machines and that's fine, but then you're not going to have muscle. Apparently
Then you
teenagers really,
atrophy. Yeah.
yeah, they like, we all want to be in good physical health and have great posture and stuff like that. So it's like that's the value of writing, reading, all that stuff. It's not because you need to produce this product because someone will pay you to produce this product. No one's going to pay you to write a 5 paragraph essay. You don't really have to learn to write one. I have said it. I have been an English teacher for many years and
Yeah.
I've said it. None of us really needs to learn to write the 5 paragraph essay.
We don't.
All of us benefit from learning how to think and think
Hmm.
about an argument and think about the structure of an argument and test our own
Critical thinking.
theories and yeah, all that kind of stuff. So like forget about the product, stop grading on the product, start grading on the process,
Yeah.
or dump everyone in the wilderness away from all of their technology and then tell them to like figure stuff out because that's the other way of getting around it, just to deny us all access to our technology, and then we'll
Hmm.
have more of an impetus to do something for ourselves.
To
And
do a
we'll
little bit of
appreciate
cognitive
nature.
labor. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And I know like there's a like wilderness therapy. That's what they actually do is like dump kids out in the wilderness with some supervision and say like go back to the natural way of doing things and that'll change your perspective. And I don't
Yeah.
know. I wish I could do that for myself.
Well, I mean, and we can do versions of it like those, and I like those types of prompts, like the color walk, which
Mm.
I know William Burroughs would like to do that when he taught at Naropa. And as a little throw in there, there's you can find online a bunch of recordings of these old Naropa classes, and it's kind of fun. Like him and like because he like would guest at them, and like Gregory Corso and like all
Oh,
these beat
wow.
characters, yeah, like teaching classes and like sometimes like Socratic classes, like just really funny. But anyway, like Burroughs liked to do this one, and he'd like tell people to pick a color. It's like pick the color red, and then like notice everything red on the walk. And like it's surprising because like when you just don't, our brains aren't like attuned to things because
Hmm.
we have to like we're focused on like not dying, so like we need to like tune out a lot when we're walking around. But like if you attend to something specific, you get surprised at what you do notice, and like it's a great exercise and it gets you to take a nice long walk. So that's kind of a fun one. But anything like that that like gets you in touch with the natural world, gets your brain going. Walking gets your brain going.
Yes, yeah. No, that's such a and speaking of like physical activity, I've worked with health and wellness coach who I know through a poet who through a friend of a poet. Um, and she's always trying to encourage me to get more physical activity. That's her job. And I
Mhm.
told her, I'm like, you know what? The only motivation I have for like going for a walk or doing anything physical would be like looking for material to put in poems. Forget about, trying to tell me I need better heart health or weight loss or anything like that. Just tell me like you need to go look. Your
Yeah,
imagery and your poetry is getting really dull. Go find some new imagery that you need to put in your poems.
that's this is the move.
Yeah.
And they encourage like, and that's why, and it's good, right? Like part of this is like forget all the wearable technology, which is just surveillance state shit. Like, like take your headphones off. Like, and this is hard for me because I'm someone who likes podcasts, right? Very meta, but like because of that, it's just like you don't need to constantly be optimizing or like thinking you're learning things or keeping up. Like we're always like afraid we're not keeping up enough. And like, just don't wear your headphones on a walk and then like listen to the bird song and like let your mind wander and not go to your phone and like,
Yep.
not reflexively try to engage with technology for like half an hour. And like your brain does start to like open up a little. Like we don't need hallucinogens to do that. We need to like not touch our phone for a minute.
Yes. I was taking a flight well, not the other day. This was like a month ago or so, but I was like, I had not realized how addicted I had become to my phone until I got on an airplane for I think 3 hours. And I had my phone, I could listen to podcasts and stuff, but I couldn't check email. I couldn't like,
Mm-hmm.
check what was going on, what's the most current thing. And by the end of this 3 hour flight, I was like, sweating, breaking into hives, having a panic attack. I'm just like, and
Mm-hmm.
I
It's
stopped and I was like,
withdrawal. Yeah.
I didn't know my brain had done this. I did not know my brain had become that addicted to my technology. Have I done anything about that since? No, just for the record, I have not. But I have become more cognitive of like how much I probably should take a day technology free or something just to detox it. But I heard the other day, this is now something entering the lexicon too. We had FOMO, fear of missing out, and now someone posited a new term, JOMO, I think, which is
Yes.
the
Joy.
joy of missing out. I'm like, thank you. The
Yes.
antidote. Yes, the joy of missing out on things is so good.
And it's so real, right? I mean, that's like a sad. So there's a sad element, which is like a constant kind of meme thing of like someone being relieved about like their friend being the first one to cancel plans before they had to
Yes.
cancel plans. So
Mhm.
that's sort of like the antisocial stuff that's a little scary. And we all need to work on that because like the loneliness epidemic is real and like isolation is bad and there's a reason that solitary confinement is considered cruel and unusual.
Oh my God. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and this is the other thing where I don't want to be Pollyannish. I'm going to say that there's like potential for every challenge that we face. There's, John Lennon says like there are no problems, only solutions. And it's like that can be true. Like, okay, we've got a loneliness epidemic. We're aware that there's a loneliness epidemic. The AI revolution, that's not going to help with the loneliness epidemic, that's for sure. But hey, what if we all consciously create some more situations where people can be in community together? For me, I mean, all of my friends are poets. I have like one or two friends who I know from high school. And the other day I was really proud of myself. I got one of them to show up to a poetry workshop. I'm all like, see, like all of my friends will be poets inevitably. Either they're my friends because we're poets together, or you're my friend and eventually I'm going to pull you into this.
Just coerce them into it.
Yeah, pretty much. But for me, that's my social life is through
Yeah.
poetry. I think maybe there's a movie club we belong to too. So like occasionally something else non-poetry
That's
related,
a
but I
third
think that's
space
adjacent.
movie theater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's also some potential really good news or really positive things we can do as we're recognizing these problems. We can, collectively start creating some solutions around, finding other ways to bring people together. So I'm not in despair,
A
concerned, but I'm
hundred
not in
percent.
despair. Yeah.
I wish there was one of the reasons I wish there was more money circulating in arts communities at like the state and local level would be to create more retreats and things like that that would like bring people together in like small regional conferences not just like giant AWP, but like more of these like more smaller things, maybe like slightly
Yes.
more intimate, but also just ways for people to gather that were not super expensive.
Yes.
And it's it's hard to do. It's hard to do without the financial, not even incentive, just like without the money being there to enable creating the circumstances, to do the programming. Like people need money
Yeah.
to create the space.
Yeah, I mean I'm all for that, and I mean that's a larger conversation, but yeah,
It is.
your mouth to God's ear.
Nonprofits, yeah.
Yeah, well, nonprofits, and then I mean, but that is also a benefit, I think, of moving it into the private sector. It's like
Yeah, it is.
because people are willing to pay for things that, like a marketing person once told me, like people are willing to pay for, I think, four things that they think are going to make them more money, health and wellness, beauty, I think was one of them, and then like anything that will improve relationships. And I mean like okay Cupid and Plenty of Fish and all those things, but I think also like things that bring people into contact with each other around friendship as well. So,
Well,
you
that's
know,
a lot of this relates to what you do at the poetry salon, right? It's like
yes.
you've created all these layers for community, like ways for people to come together. Is like you could do classes and like you
Hmm.
could come and do like a project. Like there's a lot of collaborative components. So you're
Yeah.
giving people.
Yeah, I have to out myself though, because like on one level, I really care about the community aspect of it, and I want people to feel good, whatever level of writer you are. But also, like, if you know me on a deeper level, it's like I really also care about the craft a lot. And like, I know some writers who are great at building community and not teaching the craft, whereas for me, I think we're a little bit of a smaller program because a lot of what I do is like really focusing on the craft. And oh man, I just want to spend time with people like analyzing what happens when you switch these two verbs around or whatever,
Well,
like not
that's
everyone
really
wants to do
cool.
that.
And
Yeah.
that's a niche, right? And like different from like some other communities where I don't know, but like their thing is something different, like
Hmm.
the Conscious Writers Collective or like I don't know. I know like Danusia Lamaris has one, Maya C. Popa has one. There's like a lot of, and but they're all doing different things. So
Yes.
like I keep saying this, like it's sort of like with like the number of literary magazines and a little bit of overwhelm. Like I think people worry like it's oversaturated, but then it like in the same right sort of both things can be true is like personality goes a long way. So like
Mm,
people want to go there because like the personality fits with them. So like that
yes.
matchup matters a lot.
What I think, because I think a lot about what life was like before cities and back in ancient times. And there's something called the Dunbar number. Are you familiar with this?
Mm-hmm.
I don't there's some debate about the validity of this, but it's the idea that you can really only comfortably know 150 people. And I kind of think about small communities, schools, for example. Um, you know, we we don't worry if there's an oversaturation of good high school English teachers or an oversaturation of good kindergarten teachers. Why? Because a kindergarten teacher or high school teacher is really only supposed to serve like a small group of people. You're not really supposed to have like, ooh, she's a famous kindergarten teacher, oh, everyone knows her. She's like the most famous of them. We do that with poetry right now. And we kind of elevate like this small community of people, and we kind of like, everyone's supposed to look up to Ellen Bass, Danusha Ramirez, Dinez Smith is one of my favorites, all kinds of folks. And like no,
Mm-hmm.
not trying to diminish their accomplishments by any means, but it's like, but at the same time, how about if we all just had one person for every 150? How about if we just
Hmm.
had like one teacher who is famous? I'm going to quote Naomi Shihab, the fish is famous to the stream, the
Yeah,
loud
yeah.
voice is famous to silence. Like, what if everyone just had like
Just
150 people that they were famous to, and we stopped looking for our poets to be famous and we stopped expecting ourselves to be famous and we could just like be these micro influencers
here,
and
here.
famous in
Yeah.
our own community. Yeah.
I so fully agree, and I think it would help. I could say it would definitely help poetry community, and probably has to some degree. So I thought about this a fair amount. I tried to ask on the Facebook hive mind at some point, which it just didn't really. Sometimes if you don't phrase the question right, you just get.
Yep.
But
Yeah,
like,
I've been there.
but what I was remembering is talking to like a generation of poets that are Xers, really, those that went and did get their MFA, like back in the day, to me back in the day,
Hmm.
um, there was only like a handful of programs for one thing, and there was outsized influence by like very specific people. So like Jory Graham, Charles Wright, um, who else was like really big? Shoot, I'm kind of blanking. But like there was like just a handful of poets that a lot of students circulated through them. Donald Justice is another. And they taught like so many, and notably, I mean, Jory is an exception, but like most of these were older white guys, or
Yeah.
middle aged white guys. Um, and now, if you look at programs, just to give MFAs like a little credit, I guess, is like it's much more diverse.
Yeah.
And same with just like people that are instructors in general. Is there's a lot more opportunity, there's a lot more representation, and so uh, like automatically we're getting a bit more of a spread out kind of like you said, like Naomi is like someone who people look up to. Has like these are very different like character types with very different
Hugely
toolkits and
different
styles to
people. Yeah.
offer, not remotely similar at all, right? um and like that's makes it, I don't know, it makes like it's good for the culture, like, and it's definitely good for like poetry as a whole,
Mhm.
right? Like that it's just like less homogenous.
Yeah, no, and I mean, there's plenty of research on this too. It's just like, I mean, this is why, generally speaking, poets and all artists want to move to a city. It's
Mm-hmm.
because like you're gonna encounter more diversity, and so that's gonna improve your creativity. Um, I mean, now you don't have to live in a city to do that. Like, I can study with everyone and go out into my big backyard and pick peaches. That's one of the things
Well,
that's
it's about,
nice
I
about
think,
this
I mean,
generation. Yeah.
yeah, I'm here for it. Yeah, I like that because I did live in the city for a bit, and like if I'm in the city, people, I occasionally accidentally say this city to like a
Oh,
New Yorker, and they're like, you can't say that if it's not New York. But if I'm in Philly, I'm a tourist. Even
yeah.
though like I've spent a lot of time in Philly, I lived in Philly for quite a number of years, but like I'm very touristy. I'm like looking up at buildings. So it's like way overstimulating, and I like it. And on a nice day, it's nice to be there. It's cool. It's way too expensive, but it's cool. And like
Yeah.
everyone's like hyper individualized, and it's like here's where I'm like neurodivergent. It's like too much for me. Um,
Hmm.
but I genuinely like sort of the suburbs or like exurbs or like where it starts to like get a little rural. Not saying I align on the values as much, like as
Yeah.
far as social stuff, but like I do like being in green spaces and having like access to that and like being away from like noise and overstimulation. And so like it's tough. So I like to be in driving distance of a city, but I
Yeah.
think like kind of what you're saying is like there's a big privilege in being able to not be like right in the urban jungle and then still connect with people a lot. and then have like some remove where it's like you could be in a more serene and like sylvan environment that's like
Hmm.
beautiful and like more calm and you know whatever depending on like your speed. It's obviously to each their own. I know some people that are like, I could not live in a city, it would be crazy.
Yeah, I know. Oh man, I can never
Yeah.
remember his name. Really famous poet, Philip. Is it? It's not Philip Levine. Oh, I can never remember his name too. He's
Well, Phil
super
Levine
famous.
is
Robert. No, it's a Robert. It's a Robert. It's coming to me.
Haas
Robert Pinsky. I think it's Robert
Pinsky.
Pinsky. Said something like, I could never write. I have to be in the city to write. I could never go out into the forest and write. It would be not stimulating enough. And I kind of feel
Okay.
that. But I also feel like, I've gone out. I mean, I live now in North Carolina, and I used to live in Costa Rica, and I feel like the forests out there are loud. You go out there and like there's plenty of
Nature's loud.
stimulation. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, I used to live in California, and I used to live in a more desert environment where like you could go out into the desert and it's going to be quiet, 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 rabbit, quiet, quiet, quiet. I mean, desert would probably be a great place for writing haiku, I think. But yeah, I feel like I'm the same way. It doesn't have to be city, but I prefer a whole lot of stimulation, whether it's cicadas and monkeys and parrots and that kind of noise of the jungle, or an urban environment. But it's like I need those rhythms from the outside world to, stimulate the creativity. I have been trying
That's
really hard
that's
to segue into the last poem that I wanted to
okay. Yeah.
read.
Mm-hmm. Go.
Um, yeah, well, just speaking of nature,
Nature.
uh, and simplicity and short haiku-like poems, I want to invite you to read one of my other favorite poems from your collection, your recent collection. This one I believe is called Linger. Yes?
Yes,
Yeah,
Linger.
okay.
So Linger is a fan favorite and appeared in like a bunch of spaces before this book. And so I'm gonna front load a lot here because it's
Okay.
very short. But uh, this is something that apparently is not actually normal or recommended, and I don't think like big five publishers or even some small presses would love this concept and let you get away with it. But like I several of these poems, and Linger's one of them, appeared in like first in like a micro chap from Origami Poems, then in a smaller chapbook, which was Violet Flame from Tiny Wren, and then appeared in this slightly longer collection, Take Care. And like slowly it was like expanding into these other packages. And I know I made fun of Whitman earlier for doing something that's not that different, but for me it was like a really good way I think to like build out was to like find the poems that were like really resonating and like still resonated and then try to group those together because it's like I still really like these poems, they're still solid.
Mm.
Anyway, so here's Linger, which is 3 lines, so it's a haiku with a title essentially. Linger, that scent on your hands after arranging tomatoes.
That's not even a full sentence. It's one of my favorite poems in the collection. Read it again. Go ahead.
Okay. Linger. That scent on your hands after arranging tomatoes.
Give me just a teeny bit of backstory on that.
Yeah, so this is another one that does come from real life. Um, and let me note what's interesting about this is that its scent is a prominent theme. And it is probably the least used sense in any of my poetry because I have a terrible sense of smell.
Mm.
And so I almost never would think to use like to be like, I smelled a thing and now it's relevant. And I think maybe that's why it's so like notable to me is
Yeah.
because like it was shocking in a way and startling because like I just don't notice like it's not something that I go to. And then it is like a very it's a like specific and kind of ineffable thing is like that type of scent after handling tomatoes is like it's sort of like is the thing itself and is kind of it's ineffable. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna put this up on the screen because I mean that's when we can all say it at one time.
Sure.
I also really like the line breaks here too, because it is breaking up that expectation, like that scent
Oh,
on your
that's a
hands.
little different,
Oh
actually.
no, how do you
So
have it written down?
I don't know why it's like that there. So usually it's first of all, it would just all be like left adjusted. So it's
Wow.
that scent, and then on your hands after is one line.
Oh.
And then arranging tomatoes is just the final line.
All right. Well, hey, this is a great way to plug the
To
book.
think about, and also to, you were saying you like tweaking like movement back and forth with things. And that is like a lot of the fun fine tuning work too,
Hmm.
right?
Yes. Yeah. Guys, girls, poets, you have to get the book so you can get the correct line breaks for all of the poems and you can read them more slowly and read them again and again. Mark, the real question though is, do you grow tomatoes?
I do not, though I have tried once in the city, in fact, when I lived in the city, from like hanging planters.
Oh, very cool. Listen,
Yeah.
out here in North Carolina where I live, I can't stop the tomatoes from coming up. So,
It's so cool.
some summer you're going to have to come out here and visit. You'll get to smell all the tomatoes you want to smell. People will think we're very strange. We'll walk around just smelling tomato flowers. It'll be great. It'll be fun. And I'm hoping I'll get to see you before then, though, probably at AWP and on more Zoom calls. But yes, everyone, the book is called Take Care from Moontide Press. The author is Mark Danowsky. The journal is One Art. You've been listening to the Poetry Saloncast with me, Krista Tippett. No, sorry, Tresha Faye Hefner and Mark Danowsky. Doing my best Krista Tippett impression there.
Solid.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for taking the time. I know we could talk ages and we will we'll
We could.
continue talking so yeah until we see each other again uh may the road rise to meet you, may the wind be at your back, may
Aw,
the tomatoes be plentiful in your palm, and may the poems keep flowing.
grazie, grazie. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you everyone for listening.